welcome to the second general meeting. Great to see all of y'all here and so many of y'all tuning in again and consistently. So without further ado, let's just jump ahead, go ahead and jump into the first slide.
All right, so first off, dues. So anyone who's not a member right now, just remember that to become a member of our org, there's no interview, there's no application. All you have to do is pay local and national dues. Local dues are $15 for this semester, and national dues are a one-time payment that will make you a member of National AMSA, and that comes with all the benefits of being a part of the national chapter, which are listed on the right-hand side there, but that'll make you a member of National AMSA for 4 years. So that's $75 for national dues and $15 for local dues. Local dues can be paid through Venmo preferably, but also if you need to pay with cash or check and need to meet in person, please just go ahead and email me and we can set up a meeting on campus in Austin. The local and national dues are going to be due by February 24th, which is the third GM, which is in 2 weeks from now. And if you don't pay by then, you will have 2 more weeks to pay dues, but you'll be unable to sign up for any of our events within that time, and there will be a $5 late fee added on to the local dues. So point requirements for this semester, you can see them listed out on the screen right there. 1 hour of your time is going to be about equal to 1 point. It's really easy to achieve these different tiers, and the benefits of the tiers are very material. So you'll get free admission to certain things once you reach the certain tiers. If you're silver or gold, you'll be officer eligible, and the different tiers also come with different amounts of free merch that we'll give to you guys at the end of each semester. If you want to view your points, you can see that on the points sheet, which is linked on our website, but you do have to be a paid member in order to look at that sheet and have access to the members tab on our website. Yeah, and if you have any questions throughout the semester or anytime, just feel free to email me and we can get those point issues sorted out.
Yeah, I can do this one, Garrett. My bad. Basically, we just want to emphasize that again, whether you're virtual or in person member, we really think it's very achievable to become active, and we really encourage everyone to get active this semester because that would be really great to see 100 of you guys just using our resources. So definitely check out these easy points. There's a ton of ways to get involved in AMSA, and also that includes the calendar and member resources tab. So if you have any issues getting points, definitely just reach out and check it back on the sheet consistently.
Hi, so here's some kind and friendly reminders. Please join us on Discord. We send out lots of reminders on stuff happening in AMSA, and we'd love to keep in contact with y'all there. We have quite a few people in the study channels and the gaming channels, so don't be afraid to stop in. We'd love to meet y'all. And check us out on YouTube. We have some YouTube videos such as from debate night and stuff. So yeah.
Okay, so before we get into anything else, the FAMSA application does close today. If you don't know already, FAMSA is our mentorship program. So if you want to get involved in that, definitely do. It's super fun. Like I said, that closes tonight at 11:59, and that QR code will take you to the application, or you can use that tiny URL as well. And so just kind of the schedule of how things are going to go from now. Like I said, the application is due tonight, and then everybody will be sorted by the third GM, which is the 24th of this month. And then we're going to have 2 events after that, which is a mentor training as well as a reveal event. And that reveal event marks the first day that you can start meeting up with your group. So from the 27th onward is when I will start to accept meetup form submissions and stuff. So aside from that, 2 other things: join the Discord channel. If you don't know how to do that, let me know and I can help you get in there. And then lastly, the FAMSA documents, that tiny URL on this slide will take you to a sheet that has all the important links for FAMSA that you could ever hope for, including guidelines, point sheets, slides, like informational slides and everything. So yeah, join FAMSA. Remember that application closes tonight.
So again, sign-up sheets for events open up a week in advance at 8:30 a.m. So when you go to events, I would love it if y'all sent me some pictures from the event so I can put them on the website. You can get max 2 points per semester if you send me 4 photos. So each photo is about half a point, or is half a point. So send it to either my email or DM it to me on Discord. Either is perfectly okay. Make sure you check out the member resources page on the website. It has a lot of good and important forms and documents, such as like the meeting slides and volunteer opportunities that you can pursue on your own, both online and in person. So yeah. And then this is just another reminder about how to sign up for events. You just go to utamsa.org and go to the calendar tab and read the instructions at the top.
All right, so you might already know that we have a couple of in-person events hosted throughout the semester, and we believe that in-person events are still very valuable to your experience as an AMSA member. So that is part of our reasoning why we are continuing to host these events for the semester. With that being said, we are abiding by a strict safety policy guideline as detailed on our safety policies doc, which you can find on our website, and also abiding by university and CDC guidelines. So again, we want to encourage all of you to come out to events if you feel safe, and if you do come out, just know that we are practicing safe guidelines. This slide is just a quick reminder for all of you. You might already know that there's proactive community testing going on throughout campus, and yeah, get tested as often as you want, as much as you want, just to keep yourself vigilant and safe.
Sorry, if I could go at the end, I'm on the phone with Dr. Tarver right now, so sorry.
All right, I guess I'll go then. So for volunteering, we have a bunch of things coming up. For in-person, so for those of you guys in Austin, we have CTFB this coming Saturday, and also next week on the 19th. And also, I recently ordered some, I recently ordered these blanket making kits, and so we're going to be doing a blanket making event for Project Linus, and so look out for that. The sign-up should be opening up actually today. And so in addition to that, we have a bunch of our OA events, which aren't on the PowerPoint, but they should be coming out on the calendar sometime soon. For our virtual events, which Makil and Sarah will be running, we have Adopted Nursing Home, which we had last semester, and we're bringing that back again, in addition to Dell Children's recording sessions, where we record like reading children's books and lots of entertaining activities for the kids at Dell Children's Hospital in Austin. And also helping Hand Home, which is another virtual event that we have coming up on the 19th.
Yeah, and just to go a little bit into helping Hand Home, basically it's like you get to spend real time with kids rather than just recording something and sending it off to them. So that's a really, really special event that we're all really excited for. Aside from events, we also have our resources, the clinical and non-clinical volunteering databases. So those allow you to sort of do volunteering on your own time, whether it be sort of shadowing or like helping out at the Austin Stroke Hospital or Austin Speech Lab, sorry, and other stuff like that. So you can check that out on the members tab on the AMSA website. So go ahead and check those out.
Yeah, I can keep going. So for Hook'em Health, this is a new kind of offshoot of AMSA that we're working on, and we have a bunch of directors, AMSA members who have been working on these different types of events with us. And if you check on the calendar, we have these events as well, and they're in yellow. So basically, what Hook'em Health is we want to focus on mental health and just making sure that our members and
UT students are able to have an event that's either weekly or bi-weekly where they can wind down and they can have some time to think about themselves. And so some of our upcoming events which have happened and will continue to happen are Journal with Us, which is on the 12th, and then later on the 26th of February, and then Talk It Out, which should be coming up next month, I believe. And then if Vanessa wants to talk a little bit about our Instagram and Humans of UT.
Okay, so what we want to do is we want to bring awareness to mental health from a student's perspective. And so one of the ways we're doing that is through Humans of UT, where you will share your experiences and then we will feature them on our Instagram. We will also be sharing mental health events and other resources on campus. And so with that being said, if any of you know of any event or anything related to mental health that you would like to share, you could DM it to our Instagram and then I could repost it.
Okay, so sorry about the confusion with my slide earlier, but just on the medical resources and some upcoming events are a Get to Know AMSA Medical Resources workshop. This is something I highly recommend, especially for new members to come out to. We'll be going very thoroughly over all of the medical resources our chapter locally and the national AMSA chapter has to offer you. So highly recommend you coming to that. We have a presentation on the Military Health Profession Scholarship Program on the 22nd, and HPO's, or the Health Professions Office Health Professions Fair, is following that on February 24th. This is not AMSA affiliated, but it's a great way for you to go meet medical schools, speak to both admissions staff and possibly medical students as well. So definitely check that out. And then we'll be having a workshop over the medical school application on the 25th. And then, as always, there are all of our other programs and resources on the Med Resources, and that you are welcome to take advantage of.
What's up, guys? Alongside all those beautiful events, we have a phenomenal spread of in-person and online events coming in the next 2 weeks. So starting us off on Thursday, we have our committee meeting. That's open to anybody, as many people can come, and that's just talking about our events and you guys giving us feedback and providing any suggestions you may have for the rest of the semester. And following that, we have UT Scavenger Hunt and Scriblio. Both those sign-up sheets are full, but there's space on the waitlist if you're interested in joining those. And Turtle Pond Study Sesh, Let's Be Active, and Debate Night. Those sheets will be opening up within the next week at some time, and definitely look out, come out to those if you're interested.
Okay, so the makeup meetings, again, are on the off weeks from the general meetings, and you can get a meeting point the same way that you get a general meeting point. So they're every other Thursday from 6 to 7 p.m. on Zoom. The AMSA merch store is still up and running, so if you're interested in purchasing an old merch shirt or an event shirt, then you can check out that website and you can get a really low price for some of our old merch. And I also wanted to emphasize the merch pickups are on the calendar, and the first one is actually on Monday. So if you're interested in getting a GM shirt, or if you bought stuff from the merch store and you need to pick it up, you can pick it up on the merch pickup days. And all the sign-up sheets are open, so you can feel free to sign up for whichever one you want. And then lastly, social media is a great way to get reminders, and it's also a really easy way to get an extra 2 points, I think. So please do follow us on all of our different social media platforms. And then this is our GM shirt. So if you don't have this shirt and you're in Austin, please sign up for one of the merch pickup days to retrieve it. And then I don't know if you want to, I can quickly answer the question. If you're not in Austin this semester, we're going to figure out a way to get, you can hold off until you're back on campus. And if you're graduating senior, we'll figure out a way to get you what you paid for.
All right, fundraising. So thank you guys so much for coming out to the Gongcha Profit Share a couple of days ago. If you guys still haven't, please make sure to send an image of your drink or receipt to my email so that you guys can get a rewarded point. And if by any chance you guys don't have the image, just let me know and we can work something out. But on Monday, we have our first fundraising committee meeting, just so that we could have some feedback about the upcoming events, especially about bucketing, see how you guys feel about it. But it's an easy way to get a free fundraising point, so please come out and join me. And then we have our first PCC bucketing event on Sunday on February 21st. And as I mentioned, it's going to be contact free, where we put a barcode or a QR code, onto the posters, and then we'll just walk around so that we have the ability for people to donate to AMSA and PCC if they want to, so that we don't have to get in contact with them. And then also at the end of the month, we'll be holding our Scribbler Gaming Tournament to fundraise for AMSA. Please come out. It's extremely fun. It's very competitive as well. There will be a $5 entry fee to join. And if you guys want to sign up, the Google form is open right now. So please join and ask your friends to join as well.
Okay, so I'm super excited to introduce all of you to our first guest speaker of the semester, and that is Dr. Tarver, who I believe has joined the Zoom call with us. He is an aerospace physician from NASA, and so please everyone give him a big warm welcome, and I'll hold it over to Dr. Tarver whenever you're ready.
Well, hello, audio check. I hope you guys can hear me.
We can hear you.
Awesome. It's good to be with you tonight, and I'll share screen now, and I will see if we can go from there. So you should be seeing a screen, a picture of Earth. Do you see that? Oh, let's see, I haven't hit share yet. Here it comes. Now you should be seeing it. Do you see this yet, then?
Yes.
Okay. Well, this is part of it's my pleasure to talk to you all tonight. And as I understand things, you are undergrads headed for medical school. Is that correct? That's the idea?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Hope so.
Yeah. Y'all can answer, so I don't lead you astray with the wrong talk. But I am a physician at NASA. I've been there 15 years now. And I work with the astronauts. I'm not an astronaut, but we take care of the astronauts on a day-to-day basis. And this is the view out the window of the office of the astronauts. The route to become a physician and then an astronaut at NASA is not an easy one. And this talk is actually designed to kind of go over lots of things, probably more detail than you really want. So I'll breeze through some stuff, but it's got some cool videos and pictures, and I'll try to get through it quickly. And then if we can have just a Q&A session, that's really the part I'd like to get to, so you guys can ask your questions. Well, what's kind of nifty is in the background, you see an astronaut in a EMU, extravehicular mobility unit, a spacesuit, right? It's really a little spaceship that carries a human around in the unnatural and hostile environment of space. And it's pretty nice to be able to look at the picture and recognize the person behind the little face shield. So that never gets old. Like I say, I've been there 15 years now, and that's still pretty nice. We have a division at NASA that does the medicine that takes care of the astronauts. It's space medicine, a pretty small specialty, it turns out. Not very many people doing space medicine, but you guys, if you continue on in the medical world, are definitely the future of space medicine if you have an interest down that line. And this will give you a little idea what is involved as a flight surgeon at NASA. When I was in college, I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do, but I ended up being a flight surgeon. And when I went to medical school, I wasn't sure what specialty I wanted to do, but this thing called flight surgeon kind of was in the back of my brain the whole time. And that's where I've ended up. So I like it, which is nice. It's good to be able to get paid for something you like to do. And this is something that definitely keeps our interest the whole time. Doesn't get boring doing this job. And this is the whole agenda if we talk all the way through it. But some of this, like I say, I'm not sure you want to really know all this stuff, and I'll go kind of quick, but anywhere along the way, if someone who can see, if someone has a hand raised or has a question or put something in chat, you just let me know, stop me, and really the objective is to kind of answer your questions. With that being said, there's who I am. We have multiple roles actually here, but the simple term is just NASA flight surgeon, and that's good enough. I went to the University of Texas. Actually, confession, I started off at Texas A&M for 1 year, and then it took me a few years of rehabilitation to be able to say University of Texas with a straight face. But you know, I think I'm okay now. I've got a couple of degrees from UT, and we put them to use here at NASA. Flight surgeons do a variety of things that keeps things interesting, and we do things which you can't do anywhere else, obviously, because we do the space medicine part here. Right now, you're like at the first step along this ladder to become a flight surgeon and perhaps an astronaut at NASA. I will say there are several astronaut physicians. Physicians that become astronauts is kind of a priority for NASA right now. As we look towards longer missions, the astronaut office figures they kind of need their own doctors to go on those missions. So those are astronaut physicians. Every American astronaut physician that I can think of, because I can think of the Canadians and some others, but those who come through NASA came through space medicine. I'm trying to think if that's an exception. No, right now, every doctor that is also an astronaut that I can think of anyway at the moment definitely came through as a flight surgeon at NASA first. So that's a pretty good stepping stone. It takes a few years to get through here. And by the time you actually get to NASA, there's even several hours and months of more dedicated training that's specific to how we perform our jobs at NASA. I'm prior Air Force before I joined NASA. So I got trained to do aerospace medicine when I left medical school, and I was actually, I heard Joe mention the Health Profession Scholarship Program. I did that. They paid my way basically through medical school. And this here is a quote from someone who was around before the Air Force was really called the Air Force. General Hap Arnold says a flight surgeon should be a combination of a doctor, lawyer, and priest in order that he may adequately fulfill the manifold functions of his office. As you get into medicine in the future, you'll learn there's science and there's art. And that's a bit of what this is talking about. I just spent earlier today 30 or more minutes with the patient doing something that probably could have taken me 5 minutes or less, but 25 minutes or more were spent listening and taking care of the rest of the patient, and not just their skin or their heart or their eye or just some body part. You take care of the whole person, and that's the art of being a physician. And then the flight surgeon has many roles, and not exactly lawyer or priest, but you'll see what all we end up doing. If you've hung out with a doctor, if your family, your parents or an uncle or somebody is a doctor, you know, they work in either hospitals or clinics for the most part. And that's true of flight surgeons at NASA. Flight surgeons are at Johnson Space Center in Houston, which is the home of the astronauts. The astronauts live in Houston, but they launch somewhere else. We don't launch rockets out of Houston. They launch out of Cape Canaveral, or actually the Russian complex in Baikonur, Kazakhstan. I'll show you a picture, which is actually the location where Yuri Gagarin, the first human to go into space, launched from back in 1961. So it's been a while since the first human went into space, and we still use the same launch complex, courtesy of the Russians from where Yuri launched. On our day-to-day job, though, we're in Houston. We work in a clinic. It has rooms and exams, just like you would imagine every clinic does. This is kind of the image some of you might have of what the flight surgeon does. This is mission control, where we take care of the International Space Station and activities. The person in the bottom right of this photo is the surgeon that's working the day shift. We work a day shift on regular days, which basically runs from about 7:30 to 2:30. The people on the space station, you see an image top right, those are individuals about to launch on a Soyuz rocket out of Baikonur. But the average day, once they reach the space station, they're scheduled for an 8-hour workday, and it's run off Greenwich Mean Time. So we work off also called Zulu time, and it is, I think, 5 hours ahead or 6 hours ahead, depending on whether you're in daylight savings time or not. So they're 5 to 6 hours ahead of us. By the time we show up at 7:30 in the morning, they're having lunch on the space station. And then we're there until they finish their workday and take a break. Other places we also work at Johnson Space Center include the Neutral Buoyancy Lab, where they do space walk practice. They float inside that pool inside a spacesuit, and they crawl along the mock up of the space station and do various tasks. It's pretty good simulation of space. The only problem is while you float in the water, your body doesn't float in the suit. So it comes with some unique hazards, including musculoskeletal problems and just a whole lot of pressure change because you're in a water column there. So a little bit of dive medicine is good to know. One of the other activities you might do as a flight surgeon is fly with the astronauts and these nifty little jets. They're T-38s. They're like a sports car in the jet world. They're really, really quite nice. And the astronauts fly jets. They're either pilot or they could be the person in the back seat, a mission specialist. If you're a pilot, a physician astronaut, I don't think any of them sit in the front seat. They're all in the back seat, mission specialists. They use this as a real-time test of your skills because this sporty little jet really doesn't care much for making mistakes. So our astronauts are pretty good. We haven't had a T-38 accident in a long time. And I know when I flew with the guys doing space shuttle approaches that are really crazy approaches down to the ground, these guys are really good at what they do. This is a returning astronaut from the way we've been flying for a long time, and that is the Soyuz rocket. This person landed in Kazakhstan. Again, it is 12 time zones away. It is literally on the other side of the planet. So right now, up until last year, NASA's astronauts for several years since the shuttle program ended, took off and landed in Kazakhstan. The two individuals up front you see in blue in their flight suits are NASA. The person on the far right is Dr. Cho, not Natasha Cho, call sign Nacho, easier to say, is also there when the astronaut lands. Of course, the astronaut's the one in that suit, that white suit. That's a protective suit. It holds pressure. It protects them against elements in case things go wrong. And then by the time they get on the ground, of course, it's either good to have on because it's very cold or it's very hot. This is a desert that they land in, and that suit they'd like to get out of as soon as possible. Soyuz is the way we've been getting to and from the space station for over a decade now after the shuttle went away. And the future involves this. This is Orion. It's a space capsule that's being developed, designed for exploration to go to the moon and to Mars. This image right here, I think, is Galveston Bay. And this is a session where they're practicing getting it out of a mock-up of the capsule and working procedures. Flight surgeons are there all along the way, as you saw in Kazakhstan, and actually we were present and monitoring the situation while at that Orion capsule. There's a whole lot of how humans react to the spaceflight environment, and we really don't have time for all this, so I'm gonna go pass it pretty quick. But if you have interest, this is where we basically earn our bread and butter as medicine men and women. So this is where we do our medicine part. And that is looking at the environment they're in and how it affects the human there. We'll talk a little bit about some of these items, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time there. I will say space is a very unique place to work. That environment on the space station where you see people floating, if you get on YouTube or something, you'll see them moving along and it looks pretty cool. They're floating. Well, it is pretty interesting because nobody in your classroom or any classroom I ever was in or any office that I've worked in was oriented like these people are. The interesting part of this is the human body doesn't perceive up and down when you're in an environment where there's no apparent gravity. So the person on the top of the image doesn't feel like they're standing on their head at all. All of those people feel the same. That's because gravity is not pulling fluids up, down, or around. And the neurovestibular system responds to the pull of gravity. It affects your vision, and it is monitored. Mostly gravity is monitored in the inner ear. If you lose that gravity part, then your body's going, what happened and how do I coordinate body parts? Neurovestibular system is a system that you don't totally appreciate unless you lose it. So if you have, anybody ever had an inner ear infection in this group, or a really bad dizzy spell for some reason?
Yep.
If you had it, that's part of your neurovestibular system. And if it gets out of whack, you can't walk. You can't look at something and track it as it moves along. Everything gets jittery, everything gets out of whack. And until this system reacclimates, you can't walk. So this is a major system affected both when you go up and you first start floating in space, and then when you return back from space. It takes a little bit to adjust. It's a pretty fine system, and when it's working, you really like it. But when it's not working, you're about useless. This is the system that's most impacted when you go into space and you start floating and your inner ear doesn't detect gravity anymore. And when you move your head up or down, you know, it detects the gravity field. Even if you close your eyes, you know where down is, right? In space, if you close your eyes, you have no clue what down is. You don't know where the Earth is. The astronauts actually orient basically with the Earth under their feet, but they don't have to. It's really a way to keep oriented. If you got to find something on the wall, which wall is it? The one facing the Earth or the one facing away from Earth? So it's a requirement for the humans to move around and find things, if nothing else, on the space station. It only takes a few days to adjust to space. About 7 out of 10 astronauts have some symptoms when they go up there, and it's like motion sickness. That's a short way to put it. When we were flying very short missions, basically on the shuttle, it was a huge deal because you only had 10 days to do your job, and you didn't want to spend 3 of them basically incapacitated. On the space station, our average mission is 6 months. So this is just a little bit of an inconvenience as people adjust. If you fly a second time, you typically know what's coming and you're less likely to have this motion sickness adaptation. And we treat it like motion sickness. So we have some medicines to help you out, and you just got to give it a little bit of time. I'll move on from that. Another main system that's affected, and if you have questions along the way, like I say, y'all let me know. I'm not monitoring for questions, but somebody let me know, would you? When you go into space, again, we lose this gravity thing that you and I live in all the time. You can't get away from gravity when you're on the planet. And when you're standing up here on the planet, fluids are pulled basically from your head towards your feet. And that's what the first image on the left is. That's a person who's on the ground, and you can see the red represents like blood volume and location. If you go from the first image to the second image, you see how those red lines get really skinny on the bottom. And that's when you get into space, your body squeezes all this fluid up towards your head because there's no gravity pulling it down. So you overload up in the thorax and the head. Your body detects this overload. It gets rid of a bunch of excess fluid. You don't need all that fluid in space. So our astronauts urinate off a couple of liters of fluid over the first few weeks while on the space station. And as long as you float in space, that's great. As soon as you come back to 1G, as in the last image, you see that blood now in the bottom of the body is the same as it was on the left side. The problem is you're 2 liters low now. So you see the representation of the blood in the head and the heart. It's too low, and you get like you're going to pass out. So we have had astronauts pass out if they try to stand up. So part of our space medicine program is to hydrate them and get them ready to come back to Earth. But this is natural. This is the normal way the cardiovascular system recalibrates for going into space and coming back home. Another issue, which is kind of the newest that we've learned about, is called spaceflight associated neuroocular syndrome. Kind of long words. What it boils down to is eyeballs might change a little bit in space. You don't lose vision, but you might flatten your eyeball. You might need different glasses. And we don't know if you fly for longer times, like going to Mars, if this is going to cause greater problems or not. It could be a threat to vision, and glasses can't fix vision that is literally lost, i.e. going blind. No astronauts have gone blind at this time, but we wonder about those longer missions, so we're looking into this and all the details associated with it. Use them or lose them. That's kind of the idea with the muscles and the bones in your body. And when you're floating around in space, you don't use your bones near as much. I didn't realize this even when I finished medical school and when I was a young physician, but your bones are actually constantly responding to the stresses that they feel, and they're remodeling. It's a very good system that maintains strength where it is needed without getting terribly heavy. So your bones remodel based on the stresses that you are feeling all the time. When you go to space, within minutes, your body's going, I don't need all this, I don't need all this, and it'll start dumping calcium out of the system into the bladder, and that's where kidney stones can form. And that is one of our concerns. We monitor for kidney stones. Here is just data talking about bone mass and how much is lost perhaps in space. So we work very hard with our astronauts through exercise programs to maintain bone. And I'll show you a little more on this in a bit, but you see kidney stones and even fractures if your bones just get really thin and then get a stress on them, they'll break easier than when they would have on the ground. These are main ways of countering bone loss. We have them exercise. They get 2 hours dedicated to exercise every day on the station. And since we're kind of looking over the shoulder, they do get a lot of exercise on the station, sometimes more than they were able to do on the ground. So when astronauts return from space, they're actually at least as strong muscle-wise as they were when they left. They're not weak. You'll see we carry them around, but it's the neurovestibular system that's adjusting. And if your neurovestibular system's not working, your muscles can't coordinate. And that's the problem when they return from space. Various systems have various time scales for adapting going into space. As you can see, these various lines show. And the last one's going to be the bone. If you notice, it doesn't flatten out. so far, if we were to let you go into space and not do anything to prevent it, your bones and your muscles will just continually get weaker and weaker until you have only what you need for floating around in space. Then you'll have a hard time coming back to planet Earth. So we protect them for coming back to planet Earth, and we don't want them to lose all those bones and muscles. Some other rather challenging things that occur in a space mission is we provide all the breathing gas, right? Everything's controlled, everything's monitored. And so how much oxygen you have, how much pressure is in the space station, we monitor that, and we have to deal with that. So on the space station, it's normal pressure and normal air. So air is about what, 22% oxygen and about 78% nitrogen. But there's a little bit of other things in there, including carbon dioxide. And you can see in this graphic, 0.04% of the atmosphere is carbon dioxide. On the space station, it's not 0.04, it is 0.4%. So it's about 10 times what's on Earth. And that's because it's an engineering challenge. It's supplies, it's resources, it's energy, all that stuff. It's a lot harder on the space station. And we have to filter the air, remove carbon dioxide, put oxygen in it as it gets used up. Oxygen gets used up, CO2 gets produced by the breathing and working astronauts. And it's just engineering and resources that limits us from being able to get that CO2 level all the way down to Earth normal. So that's a relatively unique situation astronauts are exposed to. On planet Earth, you might go to work for an 8-hour shift and work at a dry ice factory, or actually work in, let's say, the beer industry. So there's some CO2 exposures on Earth, but they're not 24 hours a day and for 6 months at a time. Carbon dioxide has lots of things it'll cause, or it'll be evidenced if it gets too high. I'm not going to go into all these, but we could overload our astronauts for sure if we didn't continually remove carbon dioxide from their breathing gases. And that's an on-orbit issue. And I'll tell you how we manage this on-orbit stuff. I already mentioned, here's mission control, and we work day shifts, basically that's 7 to 4, but we're on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have a physician who basically is the lead doctor for a mission. Missions are mostly 6 months long. Missions have somewhere between 1 and 3 US astronauts. The lead doctor has a backup doctor, a deputy, and overall missions overlap. 2 missions overlap about 3 months each. And that ends up giving us about 4 doctors to take care of somewhere between a minimum of 2 individuals, but 4 or 5 individuals that are in space, the astronauts. Astronauts stay pretty darn healthy when they're on orbit, unless something weird really happens. So we don't have to hold their hands 24/7. We do talk to them once a week and ask them how they're doing. So they get a doctor visit every week. You and I don't get doctor visits every week, but the astronauts do when they're on orbit. Astronauts also do a lot of research while they're on the space station, and some of it continues on when they're on the ground, and the flight surgeons are supporting them all along the way to make sure their health's not threatened by the research that they volunteer for. There's not a lot of medical capability on the space station. Here's basically what we have. The imaging device we have is an ultrasound, and that's what that pink, blue surface is there in about the middle of this picture. You have one astronaut performing an ultrasound exam on another in space. We do not have CT scans. We do not have MRIs. We do not have X-ray machines. We have an ultrasound, and that is it. And I do mean an ultrasound, one ultrasound. And the astronauts are the ones who have to do it, perform the exam to get us information. It's not automatic, and it's not simple. So they get training before they go up on ultrasound and these other medical things. We have medical kits. We do have medications up there, so they have a medication supply, and we prescribe them medicine sometimes while they're on orbit. We got all these other things here. We've not administered IV fluids in space. Think about this, IVs. A bag here on the planet has water in it, right? That's what an IV is, usually this plastic bag. And this plastic bag has water, and then at the top of the plastic bag is a little air, right? In space, that little air space actually goes everywhere in that IV bag. If we were to set up an IV and just kind of squeeze it and make the fluid go into your body, it'd take a lot of those bubbles with it. So zero G has its challenges, and that's one of them, getting bubbles out of IV fluids.
Dr. Tarver.
Yes, go ahead.
So I was wondering, with the imaging stuff, is it due to a lack of like you can't actually perform it in space, or the fact that they're so big that you can't perform like X-rays and CAT scans and MRIs?
Yeah. So one, we push the limits on who does an MRI in a hospital. The MRI technician does it, right?
Right.
Or an X-ray. You have a technician that administers those, and the X-ray and the CT scanner involve radiation. The MRI involves a huge magnet. So one, we're not going to have an astronaut radiating another astronaut, but really it's also, we can't get the mass of those machines on the space station. The space station is the most roomy space vehicle we've ever had. And the ultrasound, portable small ultrasound, is the most we can get up there for imaging.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Anybody a diver? You know, y'all should learn about decompression sickness as a diver. Divers go into water and pressure increases, and then when they come up out of the water, the pressure decreases all the way down to 1 atmosphere. But every 33 feet of salt water is another atmosphere of pressure, right? So we're worried when we're divers, when we're coming up from the bottom, maybe we collected some extra nitrogen in our system, and it'll evolve into a bubble when the pressure reduces as you come up through the water. Well, so that's dive medicine when we're talking about what to do with increased pressures and basically getting back to 1 atmosphere. Astronauts deal with 1 atmosphere is like the maximum pressure. And if we're not careful, they could be exposed to 0 pressure, the vacuum of space, which is a very unhealthy condition. The spacesuits, you see them in a spacesuit there, they're not in 0 pressure, but the pressure is about the same as a 33,000 foot tall mountain. So they're at about 4.2, 4.3 PSI in a spacesuit, and it's 100% oxygen. And there's a risk of decompression sickness. So we spend a lot of time dealing with what it says here, evolved gas problems and issues in the human. Most physicians on the ground are used to dive medicine. This is like the extreme other direction, 0 pressure instead of lots of pressure. And this is what we deal with, that spacesuit EVA, extravehicular activity. One way we keep you from evolving nitrogen bubbles. On the space station, our set, it's got air and a standard pressure, which is 14.7 pounds per square inch, which is what we're exposed to here for the most part. We put them on oxygen, and this is one way that they help reduce the nitrogen. They pre-breathe oxygen for several hours. It's hours of preparation before they actually are in a spacesuit and out the door for a spacewalk. And then the spacewalk itself is scheduled for 6.5 hours of work. So they go to work. Once they get in the spacesuit, they go out the door and they're at work for 6.5 hours, sometimes longer, without, taking a lunch break, without taking a potty break, without, any of those breaks you and I are used to. Imagine a class that goes 6.5 hours and no breaks. We've had issues. We almost had an astronaut drowned because the water started leaking from the cooling system. And that's a pretty unique situation for space. Water leaked to the back of the head. And he's like, I think I feel water. And that's not right. And by the time he got into the space station, that water had surrounded his face. It just stayed adhered to his skin and came around his face, and it was getting towards his mouth. And if it had gone much longer, he literally would have been in a bubble of water inside the spacesuit and he would have drowned. So that's crazy. The spacesuit itself causes hot spots and these other conditions, which we'll just press on. Astronauts, believe it or not, when they go into space, they still deal with things like little Johnny's not passing math in 3rd grade or something. They deal with family issues even though they're off the planet. So they don't get to disconnect totally from their families. They are challenged because they can't see their families on a regular basis. So there's all sorts of psychological issues that astronauts get involved with. And whenever I watch these sci-fi movies, if you watch something that's got astronauts in it, right, there's always crazy stuff going on. And it's mostly behavioral stuff, right? If you watch those movies, you'll see their issues generally come from somebody doesn't play well with somebody else. That's what it amounts to. At NASA, we work very hard to find people who play well with each other. That is like rule number 1. You got to be able to be crammed into this relatively small space with 5 other people on most missions. You're 6 people on the space station, and you all got to get along for 3 to 6 months. Not all of us are built for that. So we have a robust program to help support the mental health of the astronauts, including we keep an eye on people, their family. We have hurricanes down here in Houston. We have literally taken spouses, loaded them and the kids up and taken them to safety while their husband was up on the space station. And that's a comforting thing for the astronauts to know that the spouse and kids are well looked after while on the ground while they're up there. This is the personal space for an astronaut. That's their sleep quarters. That's their personal quarters. Everything else, once they come right out that door, is public space. It's all research, very public, video cameras everywhere, that sort of thing. There are all these things we do to help them maintain mental health during space flight. Exercise actually is one of those things. These individuals tend to be fit, right? They're not couch potatoes. So if you take away just the ability to exercise, someone who does it all the time, that's a big mental blow for them, to tell the truth. Radiation is one of those things that we just can't get away from in space, and it's different than what is on the ground. The Earth itself filters out different types of radiation. The 2 basic types are galactic cosmic radiation and solar particles that are ejected from the sun. The magnetosphere protects us while we're on the ground, plus the environment above us helps filter out various parts of the radiation spectrum. The astronauts on orbit are outside the Earth's environment, so that part doesn't get filtered out, but they are inside the magnetosphere. So there's still a bunch of radiation that's deflected around the planet and not getting to the astronauts. When we go to the moon or to Mars, we're going to be out there hanging out in all that radiation. So that is an issue for us to consider and try to counter. Right now, we just don't have the technology to, put up a radiation shield like in sci-fi. for the most part, it's kind of a long-term issue. If you get too much radiation, you get cancer. I think most of us know that. But if radiation is high enough, an acute exposure can make you acutely sick.
Hi, Dr. Tarver.
Yes.
Really sorry to interject. I just want to kind of give a quick update. We do technically only have until 7:30 for our official presentation, but really encourage everyone, if they want to like ask questions, to just go ahead and interject, because I think we all also want to hear the rest of your presentation as well. But just want to give that Central Time reminder.
Very good. And I was trying to, you saw, I'm just kind of skipping a bunch of this stuff. So I know it's taken a long time. And let me, anyone who needs to drop off can drop off. If you have questions, just stop me, like I say. And I'm not going to do all this radiation info. There is a video. Let me try to get to it. It's about 3 minutes long. And we do spend a lot of time in the radiation world as flight surgeons at NASA. Here's the image of a Soyuz as it comes down from space. We land out there in Kazakhstan, as I mentioned, with SpaceX. We actually land off of Florida again. The environment in Kazakhstan can be hot, like the desert, or you just saw ice, it can be cold. These are all issues we deal with as individuals come down from space. I'm not gonna do all that. There's that space capsule. It's pretty nifty. The Russians designed that in the 1950s to 60s, and they still use it. It's got some modification, but not terribly much. The size of it hasn't changed in 40 or 50 years. This orange tent is where we take the astronauts after they land in Kazakhstan, and we do little medical stuff. We try to give them an IV and get them out of those spacesuits. We put them on a helicopter, which is, this is a picture through the helicopter door, and they're on the helicopter on the right. Then we put them on a NASA jet, and the astronauts land 12 time zones away, and they're back in Houston in 24 hours. Reconditioning is very important. We have a nifty gym. It looks like just a gym, but it's a reconditioning center for the astronauts, and it's really an occupational recovery location for them. And we spend 45 days with them very intensely, and then weeks and months after that, you're still taking care of them. You wouldn't know an astronaut, though, was in space if you ran into them even a day after they get back. They've recovered so much with the countermeasures we're providing them. They're doing pretty good. You wouldn't recognize them as someone just back from space. I mentioned SpaceX. They're landing off of Florida. Boeing hasn't launched anyone yet, but they're really close. And so we'll be back on American soil soon with these commercial programs. That's Sunny Williams in a SpaceX outfit. Let's see, there should be a video. Let me make sure it's not this one. No. I will say we just had a presidential election. NASA works at the direction of the executive agency. So the president and whoever the president appoints really sets our goals and tells us what we're going to do. I've experienced dramatic change from one president to the next. So I'm really hoping we don't have dramatic change with our new administration, but they can change everything for us. And for some reason, I think that video was this one. Let me see. No video's playing. So we are on our way to the moon. We'll see what the new president does for us. I'll stop with that, and I'll hang around for any questions. And thank you for your attention. Sorry I took all the time and hardly any questions. So please, if you have questions, I'm here.
I had like 3 questions. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Bethany. Again, I apologize so much for interrupting, Dr. Tarver. We just had one quick slide to present for our org. So, Aditi, if you could present that, I promise it won't take long. Just for everyone who's remaining, just want to, again, emphasize the kind of important reminders that are coming up. We have our next GM in 2 weeks, so that will be very important for you guys. But also check out our website with all of those links, as well as the newest form that's up on Discord where you can submit Palentine's and crush grams. So that's basically it. Definitely just keep a lookout on all the upcoming upcoming opportunities. But again, Bethany, please go ahead and take us away with your question. And thank you again, Dr. Tarver.
Good choice.
Oh my
This
goodness.
is better.